Hey guys, Joe. I want to do a series of videos kind of along a supernatural spiritual vein. And what I these are things that have occurred to me, events that have occurred to me in my life, and I want to present them without interpretation or judgment and just leave it to you guys to interpret your own way. I want to do sort of a just the facts, ma'am kind of a thing. I'm just going to tell you what I experienced and what happened, and you can be the judge. And I don't, everyone I'm sure will interpret from their own viewpoint, their own perspective, and then some of you might just think I'm crazy. That's cool too. Uh, this is unusual content for me, but it's something that I felt like I needed to get down for a long time. And so I'm just going to go ahead and tell the stories as they were. And some are going to be weirder and more extreme than others. It's just the nature of it. And I decided to start with the most recent and probably the simplest of the events that have happened to me. We'll start with the mellow stuff, and then we'll work up to some of the really crazy stuff. And an interesting thing about a lot of these events, in fact, almost all of them, is I have witnesses. I have people that I have told these things to before they happened, or in the case of a poltergeist type incident that I had, there were two other people there. So it's not just in my head, but take it or leave it as it were. Anyway, incident number one, fairly mellow and easily interpretable in many ways, but the most recent. We had flooding out here in California, and it got pretty severe in some spots. And one of those spots was where I store my boat out near the ocean. Now you'd think a boat flood should be fine, but there can be problems. My boat was on a trailer, and that area flooded to about 3 or 4 feet, which was enough to kind of lift my boat and the trailer up and move it a little bit. Not much, a little bit. Boat was fine. I had to clean out and bleed the brakes because water got in the brake fluid, or I suspected it did, and I didn't want to take a chance. And the crank thing that lifts up the tongue of the trailer, that thing got all rusted and frozen, packed with mud or something, so I had to replace that. But anyway, I digress. I went out to the coast after the flood and to check on it to see if it needed any attention or if I needed to call my insurance agent or whatever. And out where I store it, there was probably about 2 square miles of area that had flooded to one degree or another, and debris was all over. And it's kind of in the middle of town. So, the buildings weren't destroyed, but there was just debris everywhere. So I go out there and I check on my boat, and I determined what the harm was, and then I went looking for a guy near there about stuff related to the boat. And I got to where his business was at, and walking around looking to him, I was talking to some guys that were doing cleanup, and talking to some other guys, and then talking to him, and I'm walking through this huge field of flood debris and talking to these guys, and all of a sudden I came on this a work of art that was just so moving. It was so beautiful. It was staggering. And it was a sea-related thing. It was a little old sailboat on its side. It's a little hatch open, and kind of in near these nice buildings in the front, a decorative thing. And the beauty of it was just stunning. I'm not usually a guy who gets wrapped up in that kind of stuff, but I just stopped and I was staring at this, and wow, this is really amazing piece. Whoever did this is just a genius. This is so beautiful. And I'm talking about this, and I look up and I notice that everybody's staring at me like I'm literally insane. And one of the guys says, well, you can have it if you can haul it away. And that's when it dawned on me. I'm in the middle of 2 square miles of flood debris, and I just walked up to one piece of that debris, and I was so overcome with it that that I completely forgot where I was and what I was doing with the beauty of it. Then it turns out that that's where it happened, the guy says. And I said, what do you mean? He says, that's the little boat the guy died in. There was one death in that flood the day before. It was actually 2 days before. And that was it. He died in that little boat there. When the boat got turned over and wedged in and the water came in and he was too old and too weak to get out of it. And he drowned. You know, I kept looking at this boat, and it had a kind of a weird, almost a goldish hue, the whole area. It was kind of weird, you know, to me. But still just emotionally overwhelming to me. So without noticing it, without realizing it, without trying, I had walked up to the one spot, the exact spot, out of 2 square miles of flood debris, where the one and only person had passed and crossed from this world to the next, and been overwhelmed by the beauty of it. Now, I went back a few days later, and it was still laying there, and there was nothing special about it to me. It just looked like a busted old little boat wedged on its side, you know. So what are the odds of that happening by chance? You know, even if there's some weird little thing went wrong with my brain, the one spot, the exact spot in a couple square miles where somebody just passed, not a coincidence. And as I tell my other stories, and you'll see that connection, you'll see what I mean and see why this strikes me this way. And because almost all of my experiences in life, my supernatural experiences, have to do with that barrier between this world and the next, and people crossing it. And in researching it, I'm Scots-Irish mostly in my ancestry, and there's a Scottish tradition that connects with that sort of thing, and it's called second sight. And anyway, so that's where I leave it, and I will get, the other stories are more bizarre and more interesting, but you'll start seeing, I think, over time, how they build up to a common core and a common thread, and why I believe, beyond any shadow of a doubt, really, that there is something going on with me. There is some sense or something, not something I can control, unfortunately, but is what it is. You know, share your stories, guys. If you decide you have a weird story, you decide to put it up, you know, feel free to link to your stuff in my comment section. Okay, that's perfectly okay with me. I'm not jealous of my subs or whatever. If you have something interesting and you want to put a link to your video about this or about any subject, if you're one of my friends, one of my subscribers, one of my regulars, feel free, man. I am absolutely 100% there for whatever it is you're there for, you know. So that, any comments, go ahead and put them below, and I will see you guys. Like, subscribe, share, and enjoy your day.